Janis Joplin, a symphony of oil, smoke, and dreams. Hello. Tonight, we will embark on a journey through space and time, returning more than 60 years ago to the Gulf Coast of Texas. We will stop at Port Arthur, an industrial town located about 90 miles southeast of Houston, where giant oil refinery towers stand tall like steel giants guarding the sleep of a legend. You will find yourself walking on the hot asphalt roads of a 1950s suburb, where the saltiness of the sea blends with the pungent scent of oil, creating a thick atmosphere of conservatism and secret desires smoldering within. We are not here to watch a loud performance under the stage lights, but to quietly witness the formation of a brilliant soul, a life beginning with the somber notes of a Janis Joplin biography for sleep. It feels strange to stand in a place where normalcy is worshipped like a religion, while difference is seen as the seed of disaster. You can feel the heat radiating from the ground, hear the steady chugging of oil trains running through the night, and catch a glimpse of a young girl with fine blonde hair intently sketching wild horses on the grass of Griffin Park. Perhaps you will feel a pang of sorrow knowing that behind that sharp smile and brilliant intellect was an endless hunger for love, a cosmic sadness passed down from the existential philosophy books of her silent father. That little girl's palace had no red silk or forbidden chambers, only cold steel towers turning their backs, where a natural talent had to build her own armor out of feathers and beads to resist the coldness of life. You might find it hard to fully empathize with everything that girl went through without directly stepping into the fog of North Beach or the scorching Texas sun. It was a journey to find recognition, an escape from the darkness, only to be consumed by the very light of fame. But tonight, you do not need to worry about those storms. We are here together to find a moment of stillness, a peaceful sanctuary for the soul. Before we immerse ourselves in the flow of time and find relaxation in Mind Manor, please take a small moment to press like and subscribe to the channel. That is how kindred spirits can find each other in this vast darkness, and it also lets me know that these stories have touched your heart. Don't forget to leave a comment, letting me know where you are listening to this journey from and what time your clock is showing. I will read all of those comments, just to know where your night has begun and that we are sharing a slow rhythm of history together. Now, adjust your pillow to be perfectly comfortable, turn down the bright lights around you, and let the sound of the fan soothe the space with gentle background noise. We will begin to drift into memory, back to a January night in 1943 at St. Mary's Hospital, where a newborn's cry signaled the appearance of a precious gem in the heart of the oil town. Part 1. Born in Port Arthur and an ordinary childhood. The sirens of the oil refineries sound from the far horizon, a dull and steady noise weaving through the brush and seeping into every crack of the doors at St. Mary's Hospital. You lie there, a tiny being who has just uttered your first cry on the 19th of January, 1943, in the heart of Port Arthur, Texas. The first scent you perceive is not the gentle fragrance of flowers, but the pungent smell of petroleum, a characteristic odor that defines the identity of this land. It is a warm southern winter afternoon, where giant oil storage tanks reflect the setting sun, creating a magnificent and cold steel skyline. You are Janis Lynn Joplin, the firstborn child of an exemplary middle-class family, carrying expectations of a smooth and stable life like the carefully manicured lawns of Griffin Park. In the arms of your mother, Dorothy, you feel the warmth and a strange rhythm emanating from her chest. It is the echo of a singing voice once likened to Lily Pons of Texas, a brilliant opera talent set aside in exchange for the peace of a family home. Your father, Seth Ward Joplin, stands beside you with a kind gaze that hides the pensive nature of an engineer always seeking logic in all things. The house at 3130 Lombardy Drive becomes your first world, a place of sun-drenched rooms and the rustling sound of turning book pages. You grow up wrapped in love, amidst wooden toys and afternoons running on lush green grass. Your life at this moment is like a peaceful symphony, without a single discordant note or any disturbance signaling the rough waves ahead. You walk on the flat asphalt roads, feeling the sweltering heat radiating from the ground, the characteristic warmth of the Texas Gulf Coast. Port Arthur in the 1940s was a closed community where everyone knew each other and traditional values were worshipped like a religion. You were a pretty little girl with fine blonde hair, blue eyes sparkling with curiosity, and a smile always on your lips. People look at you and see a well-behaved, bright child, a good seed sprouting in a perfect environment. But from your very first stumbling steps, you feel something nameless silently growing within you, an excessive sensitivity to the sound of the wind, the colors of the clouds, and even the silences between the stories of adults. Your mother often sits by the old piano, her fingers gliding over the keys, creating vibrant Broadway melodies or the improvisational jazz of Cole Porter. You sit at her feet, resting your head against the wood of the piano and feeling the vibration spread through your body. Dorothy does not just sing with her throat. She sings with her whole soul, a free flapper soul of the 30 cess once suppressed by social prejudices. She often tells you about the go-to-hell hats and the short bob hair she once wore to defy public opinion. People just need a chance, Janis, she often says while hanging laundry in the yard, her eyes looking far toward the horizon where refinery smoke columns rise. You absorb those stories like a kind of nutrient, nurturing an independent self and a longing to be different. Your father, Seth, brings another world, a world of ideas and deep philosophies. He does not like noisy places. He chooses a dark corner of the family library to read books to you. In the quiet nights, his deep, warm voice rises, leading you through the labyrinths of literature and existential thought. It is from him that you hear about the concept of the Saturday night swindle. He teaches you that this world is full of illusions, that people chase after happiness only to realize that disappointment is always waiting at the end of the road. You are too young to fully understand its meaning, but that phrase sticks in your mind like a small scar. It plants within you the seeds of cosmic blues, a primal feeling of loneliness that no toy or comfort can fill. You begin to show your independent character through the smallest actions, silent acts of resistance against authority. You remember a late afternoon when darkness began to fall over the backyard and mosquitoes began their buzzing attack. You were sitting on a wooden chair with your father, dominoes scattered on the ground after an accidental slip of the hand. "Pick them up, honey," your father's voice rose steadily. But you just sat still, teeth clenched, eyes staring into the void. A strange stubbornness flared up in your heart, a desire to control yourself, even if the price was swollen red mosquito bites on your calves. Father and daughter sat there for 2 hours amidst the silence of the night, a wordless battle of wits between imposition and free will. Finally, when you conceded, it was not out of fear, but because you had tasted enough of the flavor of rebellion. Your artistic talent blossoms like a wild flower in the heart of a dry industrial town. You spend hours over the art books your mother bought for you, immersing yourself in the world of shapes and colors. You love to draw horses, creatures that symbolize freedom and wild power. Horses are particularly hard to draw because the distance from the neck to the head is different from the distance from the neck to the tail. You explain to your neighbor friend, Roger Pryor, in a mature tone. You draw until your fingers are smeared with graphite, until the horse on the paper seems ready to neigh and bolt off the page. Painting is how you communicate with the world when words become powerless. It is where you build your first armor to protect yourself from the tedious normalcy of Port Arthur. Music also comes to you as naturally as breathing, weaving through everyday interactions with your mother. Dorothy never forces you into dry practice. She teaches you to sing while the two of you are doing housework together. You feel her hand gently pressing on your diaphragm, reminding you how to take a breath and keep your air column steady. When you sing, stand up straight and provide support from here, she says with the seriousness of an expert. You adjust your posture, feeling the air go deep into your lungs and vibrate in your throat. Enunciate, enunciate. Your audience can't understand you otherwise. Mother and daughter look into the empty space before them, smiling and waving to an invisible audience in their imagination, amidst the smell of soap and the steady hum of the washing machine. The primary school years pass with a strange peacefulness. You are a good student, a sociable girl, always looking for ways to pull other children into your games. You love people and long for connection, but your innate sensitivity sometimes makes you feel like an observer standing outside the circle of normalcy. You see the conformity in the uniform dresses, in the social greetings, and in the directions that society is mapping out for a young girl. A hunger begins to kindle, not a hunger for food, but a hunger for something more intense, more vivid than what Port Arthur can offer. You begin to seek out the dark corners of the library, reading books about distant lands, about free souls who dared to break the chains of reality. The Joplin family remains a solid fortress, protecting you from the storms of the outside world. Your father's stable income from the Texaco Company allows you to have everything you need, from private art classes to the latest records. But it is precisely in that abundance that you feel most clearly the emptiness of material values. You look at your mother, a talented woman who chose to settle, and wonder if you will follow in those footsteps. The rejection you later suffer from society actually began with your own rejection of this cookie-cutter lifestyle. You do not want to be the next Lily Pons of Texas, forgotten in church ceremonies. You want something more original and raw. 1956 is approaching, marking the end of a well-behaved childhood. You are 13 years old, standing at the threshold of puberty with all its confusion and longing. Your body begins to change, and with it, a profound change in your soul. The afternoons playing dominoes with your father are gradually replaced by hours alone in your room, listening to the radio broadcasting from distant stations. You feel the shift of the times, the smoldering of a cultural revolution lurking out there, waiting to wash away the stillness of Port Arthur. You are still the smart, beloved Janis, but beneath that shell, the first cracks have appeared. Every night, you lie in bed, listening to the chugging of the oil trains running through town. That sound is like an invitation, a reminder that the world is much larger than the tree-lined streets of Griffin Park. You feel a restlessness in your chest, a nameless sadness that your father calls cosmic blues, gradually revealing its form. It is no longer an abstract philosophical concept, but a physical sensation, a feeling of loss every time the sun sets. You wonder if there is someone out there who feels the same as you, also hungering for sincere recognition and unconditional love. You sit up, get out of bed, and walk toward the window. The lights from the distant refinery towers still burn bright, radiant and indifferent like artificial stars. You touch the cool glass, feeling the gentle vibration of the ground beneath your feet as another night train rolls by. Your feet step softly across the plush carpet, toward the closet where an old denim jacket hangs quietly. You drape it over your shoulders, feeling the weight of the rough fabric against your skin, as if preparing for a journey whose destination even you do not yet know. You open the bedroom door, stepping gently through the dark hallway of the peaceful middle-class house, the wooden floorboards groaning slightly under the weight of a growing body. Those steps take you out of the protection of the home, toward the enveloping darkness of the suburban streets, where the scent of gasoline and the sea breeze blend in the thick air. You just keep walking, your eyes toward the dim neon lights of the town center, where cheap bars begin to light up and the sound of blues music starts to rise from old jukeboxes. Part 2. Ostracized by peers and discovering the blues. The darkness of Port Arthur envelops you, bringing a damp cold blowing in from the Gulf, seeping through your thin shirt. You feel the shift in space as you cross the threshold of 14, an invisible yet cruel boundary where the pristine world of childhood abruptly closes to make way for a gray reality. This refinery town, with its massive steel structures and never-resting smokestacks, begins to become a spiritual prison with bars cast from conservatism and strict standards. You take a deep breath, sensing the familiar pungent smell of oil, but this time it no longer brings comfort. It becomes suffocating, as if trying to stifle your every effort to be yourself. Your body, once a loyal companion in childhood games, now seems to betray you openly. You stand before the mirror in your small room, staring intently at the bright red acne ravaging your face, marks that, no matter how many layers of makeup you apply, will not disappear. Uncontrolled weight gain makes you feel out of place among the slender, graceful Southern girls with their perfect curls. The physical pain of dermabrasion is nothing compared to the spiritual pain as you realize your confidence is crumbling with every peeling layer of skin. You touch the deep scars, feeling the roughness under your fingertips, and a bitter self-consciousness begins to take root, becoming a fierce hunger for a beauty you think you have lost forever. Every morning you step into Thomas Jefferson High School, you feel as though you are entering an arena where you are the prey hunted by thousands of judging eyes. You hear whispers echoing from the hallways, malicious giggles as you pass by. Instead of shrinking back and begging for pity, you choose to erect an armor of extreme rebellion. You abandon feminine flared dresses, replacing them with oversized men's shirts, torn tights, and vibrant orange hair as a challenge to the world. You begin to use profanity as a defensive weapon to stop anyone intending to touch the bleeding soul within. You tell yourself that if they cannot love you for beauty, they must fear you for being different. The bell rings for recess, but instead of joining the crowd, you choose a hidden corner of the schoolyard to stand alone. You feel the weight of derogatory nicknames like pig or whore being thrown at you like cruel stones. The boys, once the school's star athletes, like Jimmy Johnson, do not hesitate to mock your appearance in public, turning your presence into a joke for the crowd's amusement. You stand there, hands clenched in your pockets, feeling the absolute loneliness surrounding you. This rejection is not just a simple act of bullying. It is a social execution, pushing you out of the circle of normalcy and pinning the mark of an outcast on your chest. You secretly promise yourself that one day you will make them all regret it, but for now, all you can do is grit your teeth to keep from crying. This feeling of being cast out gradually spreads like a poison, soaking into every family meal at Lombardy Drive. You sit across from your parents, feeling a heavy silence like an invisible wall separating the generations. Your father, Seth, looks at you through his glasses with an unmistakable disappointment as he sees his smart, inquisitive daughter turning into a defiant, reckless person. Your mother, Dorothy, though still kind, always has a look of anxiety in her eyes, a silent judgment of how you are ruining your future. You know they want you to become a teacher, a proper woman, but you cannot do that when your soul is screaming from confinement. The rift in family relationships makes the house no longer a sanctuary, but another battlefield where you face isolation even among your loved ones. To numb the pain of rejection, stifling your heart, you begin to turn to alcohol as your first painkiller. You feel the bitter taste of beer when secretly drinking in dark hallways, feeling the warm glow spread through your veins, helping you temporarily forget the scars on your face and the sarcasm at school. Alcohol becomes part of the armor, helping you become a tough-talking, pushy, hard-nosed brawler in the face of attacks. You begin to exhibit outrageous behavior just to test the limits of those around you, to see that you still exist, even if you exist in hatred. At age 17, alcoholism has already begun to take shape, laying the foundation for a prolonged self-destruction, a heavy price you are willing to pay for a few moments of false peace. In the depths of despair, a small light appears when you meet the beatniks at school. You feel a strange connection sitting with other outcasts, those also pushed to the margins by Port Arthur society. They introduce you to the world of Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, where freedom of expression and the rejection of norms are celebrated as ultimate values. You devour pages about wandering journeys, about souls burning bright in the dark night, and realize you are not alone in this fight. These friends do not look at your acne. They look at the fire smoldering in your eyes, and for the first time in years, you feel accepted for who you truly are, not for a perfect version expected by others. Escapes into the night begin to become expeditions for freedom. You sit in hitchhiked cars, feeling the wind blowing through your vibrant orange hair as you cross the state line into Louisiana. The smell of cigarette smoke and the scent of liquor in cheap bars in Vinton or New Orleans bring a thrill you have never known. There, in the stifling and bustling night spots, no one cares who you are or what you look like. You blend into the crowd, feeling the wild rhythm of life on the edge, where the rules of Port Arthur no longer apply. These trips are your way of loosening the chain tightening around your neck. They are when you begin to encounter an underground culture where music is not just entertainment, but a manifesto of existence. And then, blues music finds you like an unavoidable destiny. You remember the first moment the needle touched the grooves of a Bessie Smith record, creating those characteristic pops before a raw, powerful voice soared. Bessie's voice was not sweet or polished. It carried the weight of centuries of hardship and defiance. You sat silently in the dark room, feeling every lyric piercing through your armor, touching the deepest wound in your soul. The music acknowledged pain as real. You realized this with a chilling empathy. Blues did not try to hide or soothe the pain like the shallow pop songs on the radio. It faced it directly, named it, and turned it into a brilliant art form. You began searching for records by Ma Rainey, Leadbelly, and Odetta, immersing yourself in the world of Black artists, those who were also victims of rejection and injustice. You felt an invisible bond between their pain and your own loneliness in this conservative Texas town. Blues gave you a new language to express your hunger for love and the existential melancholy you had always carried. You began to memorize every phrasing, every dramatic vocal technique of your idols. At small parties with your beatnik friends, you began to try singing. At first, it was just amateur imitation, but gradually, you realized a massive energy wanted to explode from your chest. You sang to release your frustrations, to scream at those who called you a pig, to declare that you had a voice the whole world would have to hear. Your singing, back then, still bore the marks of being wild and unrefined, but it contained a frightening honesty. You felt the way you broke sentences, the way you created emotional vibratos, all the result of years of being hurt. Every time you sang a blues song, it seemed the scars on your face faded, replaced by a different beauty, a destructive and seductive beauty of a burning soul. You realized that music was not just an escape. It was a weapon, a means for you to reclaim the recognition society had stripped from you. These were the first sounds of a legend, born from the ashes of humiliation and nurtured by the blood of an unyielding spirit. The period of 1957 to 1959 drew to a close, leaving behind a completely different Janis Joplin, a young woman with a shell full of sharp thorns, a heart bleeding from isolation, but holding tightly in her hand the key to salvation. You knew you could not stay in Port Arthur a moment longer if you wanted to keep the fire within from being extinguished. You felt a fierce urge to leave, to find new horizons where your difference was not considered a sin. Preparing for this departure was not just about packing bags, but a psychological preparation for a solitary journey into the vast world, where you would have to continue fighting to be yourself. You stand up, walk to the window, and look out at the quiet streets of Port Arthur one last time. Dim streetlights cast shadows of refinery towers against the night sky, like giant ghosts guarding a past you want to shed. You feel the rhythm of the blues still echoing in your head, a melancholy yet powerful melody urging you forward. Your feet move slightly, carrying the weight of all the past slurs and pain toward the old handbag in the corner of the room. You pick it up, feeling the rough fabric under your palm, and a cold determination rises in your heart. You open the bedroom door, the dry hinges groaning in the silence, like a final farewell to a house that is no longer a home. You walk down the hallway, your steps light yet firm, no longer the hesitation of the 13-year-old Janis. You head toward the front door, where the darkness of the Texas night waits to swallow your presence. But this time, you are not afraid. You step outside, feeling the cool night air caress your skin, and the only sound you hear is the crunch of gravel under your shoes as you move toward the main road, where the headlights of long-distance trucks begin to sweep through the night. Part 3. Leaving Port Arthur and beginning to sing in Austin. The train whistle sounds dryly from afar, cutting through the thick air of a June afternoon in 1960. You stand there, in the dark blue graduation gown of Thomas Jefferson High School, feeling the cheap polyester fabric sticking to your sweating skin under the sweltering Port Arthur sun. The diploma in your hand feels light, but the weight of 3 years of being ostracized, called a pig or a whore, still weighs on your shoulders like a 1,000-pound rock. You look around at the laughing faces of classmates, those who once rejected you, and feel a fierce urge to vanish from this place. You know that this is not an end, but the beginning of a journey to find a place where your appearance is not seen as a curse. Your steps lead you to the neighboring city of Beaumont, where Lamar State College of Technology opens as a new hope for escape. You enroll in the art department, hoping that among creative souls, you will find a connection. But soon, you realize that Lamar is just a larger, colder version of Port Arthur. The red brick buildings and long hallways still reek of conformity and the conservative prejudices of the South. You feel the scrutinizing stares when you appear with your unique style, and the whispers begin to rise again like old ghosts. The hunger for love is once again met with coldness, pushing you deeper into drunken gatherings with beatnik friends and trips across the state line to find forgetfulness in alcohol. You begin to face threats of expulsion, a cruel repetition of the rejection you always wanted to flee. You return to Port Arthur, working as a waitress and a library assistant during a long, drawn-out summer, feeling the exhaustion seep into your every bone. Every day at work, the smell of old books and greasy food blends together to create a somber melody of stagnation. Your parents, hoping to help their daughter stabilize her life, send you to Los Angeles to live with your aunts after you pass a secretarial exam. You set foot in Venice Beach, feeling the salt of the Pacific and the air of freedom in California. For the first time, you try living independently, wandering on the white sands and immersing yourself in the loose lifestyle of poor artists. But Los Angeles in 1961 is a monster too large for an 18-year-old girl still carrying psychological scars. You feel like a flawed puzzle piece in the vibrant picture of Venice Beach, and drugs begin to seep into your life as a way to soothe the isolation. The trip ends quietly, and you are forced to return to Texas, carrying the sting of bitter failure in every breath. In the summer of 1962, Austin appeared like a lush green oasis in the arid land of Texas when you decide to enroll at the University of Texas. You feel a strange vibration in the air as you step onto the campus, a mixture of intellect and smoldering rebellion. Here, you are no longer alone with the books of Jack Kerouac or Lawrence Ferlinghetti. You find kindred spirits, beatnik souls who reject nonconformity and worship raw authenticity. Austin gives you a larger stage to be yourself, an outsider carrying a fierce passion for painting and music. You begin to walk barefoot on the green grass, feeling the coolness of the earth and the freedom of a soul no longer bound by the narrow shoes of social prejudice. Your style in Austin becomes a powerful manifesto, attracting the attention of everyone around you in a way you never expected. You remember the feeling of holding the 27th of July, 1962 edition of the Daily Texan in your hand, seeing the headline, "She Dares to Be Different." The article describes a Janis Joplin who walks barefoot when she likes, wears Levi's for comfort, and always carries an auto harp everywhere so she can burst into song at any time. You feel a bit of pride creeping into your heart, seeing yourself recognized, even if as an eccentric. The auto harp in your hand, with its polished wood and cold metal strings, becomes a part of your body, a tool for you to transform inner pain into tangible sounds. Music begins to completely take over your mind as you join the folk music networks in Austin. You remember the nights performing at the Ghetto or the 11th Door, where the dim lights and the smell of cigarette smoke created a mystical space. Especially Threadgill's, an old gas station converted into a bar, which became your second home. You feel the smell of old wood and the scent of cold beer as you stand on the small stage, facing Kenneth Threadgill, the owner who gave you his most sincere encouragement. Along with the Waller Creek Boys, you begin to explore the melodies of Leadbelly and Bessie Smith. The strumming of Powell Saint, John and Lanny Wiggins blends with your voice, creating a sound both distant and intimate, like the inner voice of the poor laborers of the South. The shift from gentle folk to raw blues takes place within you like an inevitable chemical reaction. You cannot find empathy in the smooth voices of Joan Baez or Judy Collins. You need something more painful, more honest. You immerse yourself in C.C. Ryder or Black Mountain Blues, learning to bend your voice, creating raspy vocal distortions to portray extreme loneliness. You feel every fiber of your throat vibrate as you perform growls, emotional screams, and your characteristic rapid vibrato. This is not just singing technique, it is the explosion of a soul that has been suppressed for too long. Every note you sing carries a piece of Port Arthur, a bit of rejection, and a breath of freedom that is gradually taking shape. In December 1962, in a narrow room at the home of your friend John Riley, you made your first recordings on an old cassette tape recorder. You remember the thrill as the small microphone was placed in front of you, recording the song "What Good Can Drinkin' Do," which you composed yourself. The hiss of the tape and the rawness of the sound do not dim the power in your voice. You sing about sadness, about alcohol, and about the uncertainty of life with an astonishing world weariness for a 19-year-old. These recordings, though primitive, are the very first bricks building your musical empire, evidence of a talent blossoming fiercely, ready to break all traditional educational structures to find its own path. But Austin, where you thought you were accepted, finally dealt a fatal blow to your heart. You still clearly remember that terrible day at the end of 1962 when the Alpha Phi Omega fraternity announced the results of their charity contest. Your name appeared on the notice not for your singing talent, but because you were nominated for the title of Ugliest Man on Campus. A cold knife pierced through the armor you had meticulously built. The acne, the messy hair, and the style you once proudly called a difference were now made into a joke for the entire campus. This humiliation was crueler and more public than any slur in high school because it came from those considered intellectuals, the peers you had long yearned to join. At that moment, the world around you seemed to collapse in silence. You feel the tears welling up, hot and salty, rolling down the cheeks you always hated. Powell St. John saw you cry, one of the rare times you revealed your extreme weakness in front of others. You try to laugh loudly, to hide the pain, but that laughter only brings a sense of emptiness. This event is the clearest evidence that Texas, your homeland, will never truly accept you. The hunger for love is slapped in the face once again by boundless malice. You realize that no matter how well you sing, no matter how different you are still just a scapegoat for the narrow-mindedness of the conservative crowd. In January 1963, you decided to quit the University of Texas, giving up all dreams of a stable academic career, just to get away, because my head was in a much different place. You tell yourself, as you pack your bags in the small rented room, you have nothing left to regret here. Rejection has become the motivation for you to break through. You contact Chet Helms, a friend who also carries adventurous aspirations, and decide to hitchhike with him to San Francisco. You leave behind the mockery, the refinery towers of Port Arthur, and the limestone buildings of Austin to head west, where you believe the golden sunshine of California will warm your tattered soul. You stand on the side of the highway, feeling the biting wind of the Texas winter blowing through your thin coat. The roar of long-distance truck engines on the asphalt creates a rhythmic pulse of escape. You see Chet Helms' truck approaching, the headlights sweeping through the night like the only way out. You climb into the vehicle, feeling the weight of the auto harp in your lap and the smell of cigarette smoke exhaled by the driver. The truck begins to roll, taking you away from your homeland, away from the traumas that shaped who you are. You look through the window, seeing the lights of Austin receding into the darkness, small and faded like the memories you want to bury. The sound of tires grinding on the road creates a steady noise, soothing you into a state of deep reflection. You feel the vibration of the engine under your feet, an unceasing source of energy pushing you forward toward a future you cannot yet clearly imagine. Your hands unconsciously brush against the strings of the auto harp, making no sound but feeling a sacred connection to music, the only thing that never betrays you. You take a deep breath, feeling the scent of freedom begin to seep into the cabin, a scent no longer tainted by oil or prejudice, but pure and promising like unnamed dreams. The truck speeds through the night, across vast plains and misty mountains on the horizon. You lean your head against the window, watching the stars twinkling in the deep black Texas sky one last time before they are replaced by the vibrant neon lights of North Beach. You feel your heart beating faster, a blend of fear and excitement. You are going in search of a community ready to accept nonconformists, looking for a stage where your raw voice is considered a treasure instead of an insult. The road ahead is long, but with every mile passed, it is a step closer to your own throne, a new era waiting to be marked by soul-wrenching screams and endless blues. Part 4. Moving to San Francisco, tangled in drugs and exhaustion. The thick San Francisco fog curls around your feet like cold gray silk ribbons as you step out of Chet Helms's car on a January morning in 1963. You take a deep breath, feeling the salty taste of the Pacific Ocean blending with the scent of roasted coffee emanating from the small shops along North Beach. Texas is now just a distant blur in your memory, a place of refinery towers and sarcasm that you chose to leave behind. At 20, you carry a tattered soul but are full of longing to be reborn in the heart of the city of dreamers and free spirits, just to get away, because my head was in a much different place. Those words echo in your mind like a self-reminder, a justification for the reckless hitchhiking journey across miles of highway to find this promised land. You walk along Grant Avenue, feeling your heart beat in harmony with the bohemian rhythm of North Beach. This is the Cathedral of the Beatniks, where wandering poets sit, reading Jack Kerouac over cheap wine and billowing smoke. You find yourself like a final puzzle piece that has just found its place in this chaotic yet vibrant picture. No more cramped shoes or standard dresses. You let your hair be naturally messy, wrap yourself in colorful cloaks, and walk barefoot on the cold stones. Here, eccentricity is not a sin but a badge of honor, a testament to the authenticity you have always pursued. You begin to breathe the air of freedom, an oxygen that Port Arthur could never provide, for the hunger smoldering in your chest. Music finds you amidst the narrow, dim spaces of coffee houses, like Coffee and Confusion or Coffee Gallery. You stand on a small wooden platform, with only an acoustic guitar as your companion. or sometimes just an a cappella voice rising amidst the expectant silence of the audience. You sing about the sorrows of Black people, about Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey, with a raw voice tempered by tears and rejection. In a moment of total devotion at Coffee and Confusion, as the final note fades into space, you are stunned by the enthusiastic standing ovation. For the first time, you feel your power, the power of an outcast who can make an entire room hold its breath. But that recognition does not fill your stomach. You still live in poverty, receiving spare change in an old hat in exchange for a few free beers to get through the day. 1964 brings a fateful afternoon at Jorma Kaukonen's mother's house, where music is recorded in the most authentic and strange way. You sit there, beside Jorma and his guitar, while his wife, Margareta, sits typing in the background. The rhythmic clacking of the keys hitting the paper becomes a natural percussion for blues songs like Hesitation Blues or Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. You close your eyes, letting your voice follow the guitar and the typewriter, creating the legendary typewriter tapes. Every time the typewriter sounds, you feel as if it is the heartbeat of time, a quiet marking of a talent burning bright amidst the darkness of anonymity. You sing with a deep understanding of rhythm. Every lilt is a release for the thoughts you never dared to speak aloud. But San Francisco, for all its freedom, also carries monsters hiding in dark corners. You begin to seek stimulants as a way to maintain energy and fill the emptiness whenever the stage lights go out. Speed becomes a dangerous companion, helping you feel stronger, thinning you out for a more artistic look, but simultaneously draining your vitality ruthlessly. Friends in North Beach begin calling you a speed freak, a nickname carrying both pity and caution. You chug Southern comfort like plain water, feeling the harsh sweetness and the warm glow of the liqueur soothe the extreme manias. You use drugs to build a new armor, a chemical shield to prevent yourself from having to face the extreme loneliness gnawing within. Trouble begins to follow your staggering steps as the addiction becomes heavy. One afternoon in Berkeley, you are arrested by police for shoplifting in a small store, an impulsive and uncontrolled act of a mind being ravaged by stimulants. Your romantic relationships also become fragile and full of cracks. You meet Jay Whitaker at the Gino and Carlo bar, where the two of you play pool and find a fleeting connection. You once dreamed of a home when you both moved in together, but drugs destroyed everything. Jay could not endure your psychotic episodes and messiness. She left, leaving you in an empty room with hallucinations and the pain of being abandoned once again. I didn't have many friends, and I didn't like the ones I had, you bitterly admit as you realize that fame and drugs are only fake remedies for the hunger for sincere love. By early 1965, your body has become a wreck of mistakes. You look in the mirror and no longer recognize the radiant Janis of a year ago. Your weight plummets uncontrollably to an alarming level, down to less than 40 kilograms. Friends are gasping when they see your skeletal frame and emaciated eyes. Amphetamine has ravaged your nervous system, plunging you into prolonged paranoia where ghosts of the past and fears of the future blend together. You no longer have the strength to hold the guitar. The once powerful voice is now just heart-wrenching but weak screams. You are standing on the brink of death, a perfect self-destruction you staged yourself with alcohol and speed. Your breakdown makes Chet Helms and old friends unable to stand by and watch any longer. They know that if you stay in San Francisco, the city will swallow you up and return a cold corpse. A small farewell party, called a bus fare party, is hastily organized, where everyone contributes their last dollars to buy you a round-trip bus ticket back to Texas. It is a heartbreaking rescue, a retreat in failure that you never wanted. You stand before the door of the Greyhound bus, feeling the coldness of the metal under your palm and the weight of humiliation on your shoulders. You must return to Port Arthur, to your parents, to the very place you swore never to look back at, just to have a chance to live on. You step onto the high steps of the bus, feeling the gentle vibration as the engine starts. Your thin legs seem to no longer have the strength to support your body. You find a seat by the window and lean your head against the cool glass. San Francisco is gradually receding through the fogged-up glass, the lights of North Beach fading like a broken dream. You feel like a defeated soldier being escorted back to the old prison, but deep down, a small part of you feels relieved that you no longer have to strain to play the role of a rebel hero. The silence in the bus cabin envelops you, with only the sound of tires rolling steadily on the highway, a somber rhythm taking you back to where it all began. The bus speeds through the night, across the mountains and desolate fields of the West. You close your eyes, trying to dispel the images of the injections and the endless drunks. The smell of the old bus interior and the cigarette smoke of other passengers surround you, creating a narrow but safer space than anywhere you have been in the last 2 years. You feel your breath gradually steadying, though your chest still aches from exhaustion. A new journey, or rather a painful healing, awaits you at the end of the road, where the refinery towers of Port Arthur still patiently wait for their stray child to return. You reach out to lightly touch the small suitcase at your feet, which contains the fragments of your life in California, a few half-written songs, a frayed feather boa, and memories of a voice that was once applauded. The vibration of the bus beneath you creates a strange, soothing sensation, like a late embrace from fate. You don't know what awaits you at home, whether your parents will accept such a ravaged version of Janis, but at this moment, all you want is to sleep a deep sleep, without hallucinations, without panic, amidst the steady engine noise taking you through the darkness of America. Part 5. Returning home for rehab and recovery. The heavy wooden door of the house on Lombardy Drive closes behind you, separating the loud, chaotic world of San Francisco from the almost absolute silence of Port Arthur. You take a deep breath, feeling the faint scent of air freshener and the smell of baking from your mother's kitchen, sense of safety, yet also of confinement. Your feet, once accustomed to walking barefoot on the cold stones of North Beach, now slip into soft indoor slippers. You feel the weight of your body, a body weighing less than 40 kilograms, frail and worn out like a dry branch in the wind. This return is not a glory, but a silent retreat to snatch life back from the claws of drugs and exhaustion. During the first few weeks, time seems to stand still in your old room. You lie there, watching sunbeams dance on the ceiling, listening to the birds singing in the garden and the steady hum of traffic on the streets. Your mother, Dorothy, brings you hot meals and full glasses of milk, tending to you as if you were still the 13-year-old Janis. You begin the painful process of withdrawal, where every fiber, every nerve screams for the familiar stimulants. But you grit your teeth and endure, clutching the bed frame, feeling cold sweat soak the crisp white sheets. You understand that San Francisco almost took your life, and now every meal, every deep sleep without hallucinations is a small victory in the battle to reclaim yourself. Your health gradually recovers, your weight increases, and your skin begins to regain its natural glow. But along with physical sobriety comes an extreme spiritual confusion. You look in the mirror and see a stranger looking back. To please your parents and prove to this town that you have changed, you begin to put on a brand new armor, the Port Arthur ethos. You shed the vibrant feather boas to wear conservative business suits, skirts past the knee, and elegant high heels. The peak of this masquerade is the rigid beehive hairdo, a hairstyle meticulously sprayed so that not a single strand dares to stray from its path. You tell yourself that if you look like a traditional woman, perhaps your erratic soul will also find peace. In the autumn of 1965, you enrolled at Lamar University in Beaumont, majoring in anthropology and social work. You sit in the lecture hall among young, ambitious students, feeling like an imposter playing the role of an obedient student. You take careful notes, participate in discussions, and smile socially at everyone around. But deep down, you feel a numbing isolation. In letters to friends in Austin, you cannot hide the irony when writing, "She is being very good," and that being very good is the strangest feeling she has ever had. You realize that forcing yourself into the mold of normalcy consumes even more energy than rebelling. It is like an invisible rope tightening around your breath every day. Psychological therapy sessions in Beaumont with Bernard Giarratano become the only place you dare to remove the mask. You sit across from the social worker, feeling the vibration of the acoustic guitar you often carry with you. Giarratano sees in you a fragile ego, a soul diffused, spewing, splattering, splaying all over, without a center to hold. You confess to him your fear of drugs, the memory of the needles, and the devastation they caused. You fear that you cannot return to the stage without being caught in the old spiral. Giarratano patiently reassures you that your talent is independent, that you do not need to use narcotics to shine. But you look at him, eyes full of doubt, because you know that for you, music and destruction always go hand in hand like two sides of a coin. The greatest paradox in your heart right now is the fear of a normal future. You tell Giarratano that if you aren't a singer, she would have to become a key punch operator or a secretary, and then a wife and mother. And she would have to become similar to all the other women in Port Arthur. The thought of a pre-programmed life, drifting peacefully between refinery towers and tea parties, terrifies you more than death. You long for freedom, but fear its price. You stand at a crossroads. On one side, the abyss of drugs and fame. On the other, the grave of boredom and normalcy. Amidst those anxieties, Peter DeBlanc appears as a ray of hope for stability. He is the man you began dating during your final days in San Francisco, an IBM engineer with a disciplined and intellectual style. When Peter comes to Texas to ask her father for her hand in marriage, you feel like you are touching the final life buoy. You and your mother plan a traditional wedding together, choosing fabric for the wedding dress and dreaming of a home in New York. You try to believe that Peter's love will be the launch pad to leave Texas once more, but this time as a proper wife. You hunger to be loved, to belong to someone, a fierce hunger you hope Peter can fill. However, the dream of an ordinary life is shattered in the most blunt and cruel way. Peter DeBlanc ended the engagement soon afterward, leaving you standing alone amidst the unfinished wedding plans. This knife stabs deep into your self-esteem. Another rejection is pinned to your life. It proves that no matter how hard you try to change your appearance, no matter how many business suits you wear or how perfect your beehive hair is, The world of normal. People still recognizes the irreconcilable difference within you. You realize you cannot pretend forever that your nature is that of an artist with explosive pain and longing, an entity that cannot be locked in a glass cage of false safety. In those desperate days after the engagement ended, music once again became the only saving medicine. Despite strict supervision, you still secretly drove from Beaumont to Austin for solo performances. You remember the benefit performance for Mance Lipscomb, where you stood on stage with only an acoustic guitar and a voice full of emotion. No blinding stage lights, no thundering electronic drums, just you and original music. You sang as if it were the last time you ever could, to release the frustrations of a broken romance and an uncertain future. The acoustic recordings in 1965, such as Turtle Blues or Caudine, preserved the most raw Janis, where your singing rose with power and subtlety, a total contrast to the shell of an anthropology student you were trying to play. Turtle Blues is not just a song. It is your heart's voice about self-protection. You sing about building a hard shell so that no one can hurt you again. Every note you pluck on the acoustic guitar carries the reflection of a tumultuous year. 1,965 saved your physical life, helping you regain strength and sobriety. But it was also a harsh test to realize that you could not live without music. The boredom with Lamar, the collapse of the family dream, and the call of the stage were merging into a massive energy. You feel the Port Arthur shell gradually cracking, and a new person is preparing to break through into the light. You walk out of Geritano's therapy room, feeling the cool breeze of the Texas afternoon caress your face. You walk toward your car, the rhythm of your high heels tapping steadily on the asphalt, a dry but determined sound. You do not look back at where the United Fund Administrative Building fades into the twilight. Your hands touch the steering wheel, feeling the vibration of the engine as it starts, a familiar energy flowing through your veins. You drive away from Beaumont, heading toward Port Arthur, but your mind has already begun to fly further, past the refinery towers and the arid pastures, to find the horizon where the neon lights of San Francisco are calling. The tires grinding on the road create a somber melody but hide a new determination. You feel your rigid beehive hair becoming too heavy, a burden you are ready to shed at any moment. You take a deep breath, feeling the smell of weeds and exhaust blending together, a scent of movement and change. You know that this period of recovery is nearing its end, and a new chapter, more brilliant and dangerous, awaits you ahead. You are no longer afraid of drugs or rejection, because you have found strength in your very traumas, a strength that will turn you into an immortal legend on the world's rock stage. The car speeds through the night, across the long miles of Texas. You look at the stars twinkling in the wide, high sky, feeling small but full of life. You tell yourself that the next time you leave, there will be no retreat. You will walk with the posture of a queen, with a voice that can shake the world, and a heart that never surrenders to tedious normalcy. The car's engine noise steadily soothes you, taking you back home to prepare for the greatest journey of your life, where the name Janis Joplin will forever be engraved in music history with fiery blues and an absolutely free soul. Part 6. Returning to San Francisco and joining Big Brother. The Greyhound bus engine is no longer the sound of a retreat, but now It rings out like the rhythmic drumbeat of a new beginning. You sit by the window, watching the miles of Texas recede, feeling the sweltering heat of Port Arthur gradually replaced by the cool air radiating from the western mountains. On your head, the rigid beehive, a symbol of fake obedience for the past year, seems to be slowly loosening with every bump in the road. You have left behind the lecture halls of Lamar University, the dry anthropology books, and the clumsy lie to your parents that you were only moving to Austin to sing. The truth is, you are heading straight for San Francisco, where the call of destiny sounds through the invitation of Chet Helms. You remember the moment Travis Rivers appeared in Texas like a messenger from another world, carrying the breath of the counterculture movement simmering in Haight-Ashbury. The offer to join a psychedelic rock band named Big Brother and the Holding Company felt like an electric current running down your spine. You tried to live normally, tried to wear business suits, and stay away from all stimulants. But the hunger for music and freedom never truly subsided. You know you are embarking on a gamble with your own life, but between the boring safety of home and the risky brilliance of the stage, you have chosen art. Your hands tighten around the handle of your bag, where the acoustic guitar still lies quiet, waiting to harmonize with powerful electronic sounds. On the 4th of June, 1966, you walk into the rehearsal room of Big Brother and the Holding Company with an appearance that stuns all the band members. You don't look like a female star. You look tattered, rough, and carry the marks of someone who just stepped out from the ashes of exhaustion. Peter Albin, Sam Andrew, James Gurley, and Dave Getz look at you with undisguised skepticism. They are artists of psychedelic music, loud and disorganized, while you carry the soul of raw blues from the depths of Texas. The difference in style at that time was like a deep chasm, until you opened your mouth and uttered your first notes. At that moment, the whole room seemed to explode. Your voice is not just sound, it is a violent force of nature, tearing through the cigarette smoke-thick air. Sam Andrew later vividly described the feeling. It would be like if you went out and got a cat out in the alley and dragged the cat in. She's kind of like she has her claws out, when she opened her mouth. I think it was apparent to me anyway, or I think to most of the people, that she was the one. You sing as if this were the last chance to exist. Every note, an affirmation of self, turning the doubts of those boys into absolute admiration. You officially become a perfect piece of Big Brother, a rough diamond, amidst the distorted sounds of psychedelic rock. Although you have officially returned to the world of music, the fear of the past still clings to you like a ghost. When you moved into an apartment with Travis Rivers, you forced him to make a grim oath never to allow any needles in the house. You still vividly remember the devastation of speed in 1965, the feeling of your body melting and your mind falling into a black hole of panic. You built an armor of absolute rejection of injectable drugs, hoping this toughness would protect the fragile sobriety you had painstakingly rebuilt in Texas. But your determination was tested immediately on a tumultuous evening. When drummer Dave Getz drove you home after rehearsal, you caught Travis's guests preparing to use drugs. A terrible psychological explosion occurred, where all the pent-up emotions of the past year poured out in screams and tears. You screamed at Travis. "We had a pact. You promised me. There wouldn't be any of that in front of me." When Dave tried to reassure you that they were only using mescaline, you shouted in despair, "You don't understand. I can't see that. I just can't stand to see that." That fierce reaction was not just anger. It was the cry for help of a soul afraid of returning to hell. Amidst the psychological undercurrents, communal life in San Francisco in 1966 brings you a rare sense of belonging. Big Brother operates like a real family, where the absolute democratic philosophy of the hippie movement is worshipped. You live together, rehearsing daily at 1090 Page Street, and later in the wilderness of Lagunitas. All decisions are made by consensus. Earnings are shared equally. No one is a star, and no one is left behind. You feel the warmth of camaraderie, a feeling Port Arthur never granted. For the first time in your life, you see yourself not as an outcast, but as part of an entity creating wonders together. On the 10th of June 1966, your first performance with the band takes place at the Avalon Ballroom. Initially, you just stand in the back, modestly playing the tambourine and singing backup for a few songs. But the magnetic pull of your voice and your bohemian style is like a giant magnet. The audience at the Avalon Ballroom begins to realize a strange energy is radiating from the girl with messy hair and fiery eyes on stage. You begin to move forward. Your blues growl blends with the screaming electric guitars of James Gurley, creating an unprecedented resonance. The crowd responds wildly. They aren't just hearing music, they are witnessing the liberation of a soul. Very quickly, the name Janis Joplin becomes the center of all attention, breaking the band's inherent structure of equality. August 1966 brings a harsh trial in the form of a tour to Chicago. You and the band had to endure dark days in the Windy City. A 4-week gig contract becomes a financial disaster as sparse audiences leave the organizer penniless. You are stranded in Chicago without a cent, sleeping on cold floors and eating makeshift meals. This stalemate pushes the band into a hasty decision, signing with Bob Shad's Mainstream Records. You stand in the studio in Chicago in September, feeling the confinement of the soundproof walls and the lack of professionalism in the recording session. The first recordings are unsatisfactory, but it is the only ticket for you all to have enough money to buy bus tickets back to San Francisco. Returning from Chicago, the love pageant rally that autumn is like a baptism for the spirit of the whole band. You stand on stage with the Grateful Dead, amidst thousands of young people carrying flowers and peaceful smiles. You feel the philosophy of the hippie movement seeping into your every note. This is the time when your music is not just art, it is part of a cultural revolution. You begin to experiment more with your voice, creating distorted sounds and emotional screams that later become your trademark. At the end of 1966, you moved to Los Angeles to complete 10 tracks for the debut album. Songs like Down on Me or Bye Bye Baby bear a live, raw quality without professional editing, reflecting the wild nature of Big Brother. However, in the excessively free atmosphere of San Francisco, your armor against drugs begins to show irreparable cracks. Your surroundings are too permissive, a place where artists see stimulants as tools to expand the mind and creativity. You find yourself alone in the effort to stay sober when everyone around you is immersed in hallucinations. Without a structured recovery program, coupled with the growing pressure of fame and exhausting tours, you begin to surrender to old temptations. Southern comfort returns to your hand as a constant companion, a liquid armor to help you face the crowd. And then, narcotics seep back in. At first, it's just to maintain energy, but very quickly, it becomes a new shackle. Your love life in 1966 also becomes as complex and unstable as the music you play. You find harmony with Ron Pigpen McKernan of the Grateful Dead, another blues soul in the heart of the psychedelic rock world. This brief but understanding relationship brings you some comfort, but it also comes with bad drinking habits. Simultaneously, you are caught in a dramatic romantic relationship with James Gurley, the guitar player of your own band. The intertwining of love and work between artistic transcendence and personal breakdown creates a psychological vortex where you never truly find peace. You sing about pain because you are truly living in it. Every lyric is a fragment from your slowly breaking heart. 1,966 closes with a change in management, from Chet Helms to Julius Carpin, marking a more professional but colder transition. You look back at the past year and see an incredible transformation. From a shy Texas girl trying to live obediently, you have become a symbol of rebellion in San Francisco. You have found your voice, have a debut record, and have tasted the flavor of enthusiastic acclaim. But the price paid is the breaking of sobriety oaths and the return of old ghosts. You stand on the peak of expectation, but beneath your feet is a waiting abyss. You walk out of the studio in Los Angeles, feeling the chill of the year-end evening seeping into your thin fur coat. The sound of your heels taps on the sidewalk, an echo in the quiet space of the City of Angels. Your hands go deep into your pockets, touching the small bottle of Southern Comfort you always carry, feeling the warmth and false reassurance it brings. You look up at the sky, where faint stars are being overwhelmed by the neon lights of billboards. A pivotal year has passed, leaving behind memories of the birth of Big Brother and the turbulent first recordings. You walk toward the waiting car, every step carrying the weight of premonitions for an explosive 1,967 approaching. You feel your heart beating faster, a blend of excitement and a vague fear of the future. The car engine starting creates a dull sound, soothing your mind into a state of quiet reflection. You know you can't go back to Texas anymore. The road ahead only holds brilliant glory or absolute self-destruction. You take a deep breath, feeling the smell of exhaust and night mist blending together, a scent of unceasing movement toward new horizons of fame. The car rolls on, taking you away from the studio and toward the hotel, where loneliness waits after the applause. You lean your head against the window, watching the streetlights pass like streaks of light as time moves too fast. The melodies of "Down on Me" still echo in your head, a blues song about oppression but also about resilience. You secretly promise yourself that no matter what happens, you will always sing with everything you have until your last breath vanishes into the air. Darkness envelops the car cabin, leaving only the sound of tires grinding on the asphalt, taking you through the night to prepare for the greatest moment at Monterey, waiting on the other side of time. Part 7. Shining at Monterey Pop and becoming a major stopper. The breeze from Monterey Bay blows through the eucalyptus groves, carrying the salty scent of the sea and the heady fragrance of jasmine perfume from the Summer of Love in 1967. You stand behind the wings of the Monterey International Pop Festival stage, feeling the coldness of the metal from the tambourine clutched tightly in your palm. Around you is a world in a restless state of transformation, where colorful clothes, flower crowns, and eyes sparkling with faith in a new era are converging. You look out at the vast sea of people before you, estimating tens of thousands of souls waiting for something they cannot yet name. Big Brother and the holding company is still just a local San Francisco band at this point, unknowns on a list full of legends like Jimi Hendrix or Otis Redding. But inside your chest, a storm is forming. A primal energy beginning to vibrate with the heartbeat of a soul hungry for recognition. You feel the heat from the giant stage lights starting to pour down, bringing out the scent of the pine wood of the newly built stage. The hippie-style democratic philosophy the band has always pursued suddenly feels very small before the scale of this event. You and your bandmates Peter, Sam, James, and Dave still share everything from earnings to makeshift meals, but the pressure from this national-level event is creating invisible cracks. You take a deep breath, feeling your lungs fill with the cool coastal air, trying to dispel the constant anxiety of whether you are good enough. You are no longer the rejected girl in Texas, but the hunger for love still clings to you, urging you to turn tonight into an absolute conquest. You check your adornments, feeling the roughness of the beads and the softness of the embroidered fabric, preparing to enter the Temple of Legends. Saturday afternoon unfolds in a burst of regret, as your fiery performance is not filmed due to dry contract disputes. You sang as if it were your last time to breathe, but as you step off the stage, you know history needs a more tangible testament than fleeting memories. Therefore, on Sunday afternoon, when director D.A. Pennebaker's cameras begin to move, you stand there once again, facing the lens and tens of thousands of breathless spectators. You feel the plywood under your feet vibrate slightly with Peter Albin's bass rhythm, a physical connection to the music beginning to flow. This time, you are no longer performing. You are living, bleeding, and shedding your entire shell in front of the world. As the first notes of Ball and Chain ring out, the space around you seems to freeze. This is a Big Mama Thornton song, but now it has become the manifesto of your own pain. You feel every fiber of your throat stretch, creating growls and raspy screams of primal blues. You don't just sing with your voice, you are wringing out your entire body and soul for every note. You close your eyes, letting the sweat run down your face, and every time you scream a gut-wrenching lyric, you feel as though you are truly emptying out her guts through that amazing voice of hers. You no longer care how you look or whether old scars are visible under the lights, because at this moment, you are the embodiment of pain and salvation. From the wings, you catch a glimpse of Mama Cass Elliot, an icon of success you have long admired. You see her standing frozen, eyes wide, following your every move. When the final note of Ball and Chain fades into space, you hear the breathy "wow" escaping her lips, an acknowledgement from a veteran peer. That reaction is like a balm for your bleeding soul, a testament that a white woman can also sing the blues with all the vulnerability and power of a soul that has endured too many storms. You stand there, amidst the thundering applause, and in that moment, you know you have become the real queen of the festival. The shockwave from Monterey spreads at light speed through the newspapers and the phone calls of music moguls. You feel the change in the atmosphere around you as soon as you step off the stage. Clive Davis, president of Columbia Records, looks at you with the eyes of someone who has just found a priceless treasure, a mesmerizing quality he has never seen in anyone else. You find yourself swept into a whirlwind of contract offers, negotiations, and promises of a bright future. Fame comes so fast that you feel dizzy, like standing on the peak of a giant wave without knowing where it will take you. Right then, Albert Grossman appears, carrying the demeanor of a destiny maker with an arrogant 25% management fee. You see in this man a power that can help release you from the old mainstream records contracts and bring you to Columbia. Grossman sees through your longing. He knows how to peel your personality away from the collective to turn it into a massive commercial product. Even though the other members of Big Brother are still by your side, you begin to feel the world's attention is reserved solely for you. You sign the new contract, feeling the coldness of the ink on paper, and know you have just entered a power game where you are the ace, but also the one under the most pressure. Money and fame arrive like a downpour after the dry years in Texas. Your performance fee skyrockets to $10,000 a night, a figure you previously didn't even dare to dream of. You begin to build a new armor to face this blinding glory. Designer Linda Gravenites helps you create vibrant outfits filled with feathers, fringe, and overlapping beads. You wear large, colorful sunglasses and expensive fur coats, trying to turn yourself into the wildest and loudest version possible. You need this shell to hide the shyness and deep traumas rooted in your youth, a way to tell the world you have grown stronger, even though inside you are still the 14-year-old girl always longing to be loved. A bottle of Southern Comfort becomes an indispensable part of your stage persona. You feel the harsh sweetness of the liqueur on the tip of your tongue as you drink directly from the bottle in front of tens of thousands, raising it like a manifesto of freedom and rebellion. This act brings you the crowd's applause and even a gift from the liquor company itself. But it is also a heartbreaking truth about how you are using alcohol as a tool to maintain a false mania. The fact that a corporation gifted you a fur coat to thank you for publicly showcasing your alcoholism seems like a bitter irony that no one in the industry at the time wanted to bother analyzing. You put that coat on, feeling the softness of the fur, but it cannot dispel the chill of the loneliness gnawing at you. The greatest paradox of 1967 is the dizzying, vertiginous drop into ordinary silence immediately after every show. You have pulled out all your most painful emotions to serve the audience, screaming until exhausted to receive applause. But when the lights go out and you return to your hotel room, the emptiness hits more cruelly than ever. You realize you can connect with tens of thousands of strangers, but fail to find a lasting personal bond. Narcotics and hard liquor are called upon again as anesthetics to fill the terrifying void after each performance, a cycle of transcendence and collapse that leaves your soul increasingly weary. Your personal fame begins to cause irreparable rifts within Big Brother. You see the change on the performance posters, where the band's name is pushed down to make room for Big Brother and the holding company featuring Janis Joplin. Jealousy and a sense of being disregarded begin to show on your bandmates' faces. They feel they have become just a backup band, while you begin to realize that their technical limitations no longer keep up with your growing musical ambition. You demand perfection, a tightening of every note, but Big Brother still wants to keep the loose improvisation of the early days. Albert Grossman constantly feeds you the idea of a solo career, that you deserve better musicians and a separate stage. You are torn between loyalty to those who considered you family and the hunger to reach the true peak of art. The seeds of breakdown were sown deeply from the moment you stepped down from the glory of Monterey. You feel the silent distance in rehearsals, the looks that are no longer as warm as before, and a sadness called betrayal begins to kindle in your heart. You know you cannot stay in this cocoon forever if you truly want to fly high, but the price of growth is solitude. One late night after a performance, you sit alone backstage, still holding the worn tambourine. You look in the mirror, seeing the vibrant makeup starting to smudge from sweat. And beneath those bright feathers is a body, exhausted and weary. You take a deep breath, feeling the scent of powder and hard liquor still lingering in the air. The cheers of the audience still echo somewhere in your head, but right now, all you want is to find a bit of true peace amidst the storm of fame. You stand up, walking slowly toward your locker, the dry sound of footsteps echoing on the wooden floor of the empty dressing room. Your hands brush lightly against the armor outfits hanging quietly on the rack, feeling the roughness of the fringe and the coldness of the metal beads. You choose a simple denim jacket for yourself, casting the expensive fur coat aside as if trying to find a bit of the Janis of years past. You walk out the back door of the theater, feeling the cool night air rush into your lungs, a rare gentleness after hours of explosion on stage. You walk a short distance toward the parking lot, where the luxury car is waiting to take you back to the hotel, away from the wild crowd ahead. You climb into the back seat of the car, feeling the smoothness of the leather and the quiet space inside the perfectly soundproofed cabin. The sound of the car door closing is definitive, cutting off the chaotic sounds of the outside world completely. You lean your head against the pillow, watching the city streetlights glide past the window like streaks of light from a dream passing too fast. A soothing weariness begins to spread through your body, and in that moment, you let your mind drift toward new horizons, where major contracts and international tours await you in the turbulent year of 1968 ahead. Part 8. Signing a major management contract and releasing the record. The luxury car door closes with a neat click, separating you from the biting cold of the New York winter in 1968. You lean your head against the leather seats, smelling of a new car, feeling your heart still beating fast after the meeting at the towering CBS building. The neon lights of Manhattan glide past the window like the vibrant streaks of a dream you have just touched. You look down at your hands, fingers still carrying a bit of the chill from the air-conditioned room on the 26th floor, where you just put your pen to the contract that will change your destiny forever. No longer a wanderer begging for spare change in North Beach, you are now the most precious asset of Columbia Records, a superstar standing on the threshold of ultimate wealth and fame. Albert Grossman's appearance in your life is like a whirlwind, bringing power and cold calculations. You sit across from the man with silver hair and round-rimmed glasses, feeling the scent of expensive cigar smoke surrounding the space. When the members of Big Brother hesitantly suggested an income of $75,000 a year, you saw Grossman merely shrug arrogantly. "Say $100,000, he said casually, as if they were just meaningless numbers. You feel an electric current run down your spine as you realize your value in the eyes of the music business. Although the contract still bears the name of the whole band to retain some shell of the hippie collective spirit, you understand that Grossman only truly cares about one person: you. The 25% management fee he demands is a heavy price for a perfect launchpad, a new order where you are the central nucleus of a profit empire. Amidst the noise of New York, you find a quiet corner in a luxury hotel room to write home to your parents in Port Arthur. You hold the fountain pen, feeling its weight on the pristine white paper, and let the words flow like a child who has just achieved a glorious feat. Too much, eh? So, now we're in the process of taking the East Coast by storm. You write with all the pride of an outcast, now returning in glory. You tell them about the press party, about meeting the powerful president, and even about getting drunk in celebration. You want them to know that the confused and awkward girl of the past is now about to become rich and famous. And finally, it looks like something is going to work for me. The letter's conclusion carries a heartbreaking relief. A hunger for family recognition has finally found an outlet. However, stepping into the studio to record the album Cheap Thrills from March to May 1968 is a completely different experience. You stand in the sterile and cold space of the studio, where every breath, every note is scrutinized under the microscope of producer John Simon. No more wild energy from the crowd, no more smell of sweat and warmth from live performances, only a terrifying silence between takes. You feel the tension spreading among the members of Big Brother as they are forced to play a segment of music dozens of times. The band's technical weaknesses, once covered by their wildness on stage, are now laid bare under the studio lights. You see the self-consciousness clear on Sam Andrews' face as he fumbles with notes out of rhythm. Suddenly you're making a recording, and it's about like every little sound, whether it fits. So all of a sudden there was seeing ourselves as inadequate. Sam's later confession echoes like a painful sigh. You feel a struggle in your heart. You love them like brothers. But you also long for a perfection they cannot provide. To save the situation, John Simon had to use the trick of dubbing fake crowd noise into the album to create the illusion of a live performance. Only the song Ball and Chain retains absolute authenticity, where your voice soars amidst the distorted sounds of life, a manifesto of pain that cannot be framed within 4 studio walls. The cover of the album Cheap Thrills, designed by Robert Crumb, becomes an anchor for your identity amidst the pressures of the record label. You remember the moment you firmly refused the conventional cover photo Columbia requested, choosing instead Crumb's vibrant and satirical psychedelic style. You feel a connection with the exaggerated drawings, where your image appears as a priestess of the blues, both wild and full of ego. This artwork is the first aesthetic armor you build to protect your counterculture roots from being swallowed by capitalist corporations. It is an affirmation that no matter how famous you become, your soul still belongs to the streets of San Francisco and the free spirits on the margins of society. On the 12th of August, 1968, when Cheap Thrills was officially released, you feel like you are standing at the center of a global earthquake. 1 million copies are sold in the first month alone, 8 weeks at the top of the Billboard charts. It's all like the craziest dream. You hear your voice echoing from every radio on the street. The covers of Piece of My Heart and Summertime become melodies haunting the public mind. You feel the sweetness of fame as your annual income hits the $150,000 mark, but it comes with a vague fear. You are now not just a singer. You are an icon, a blues mama whom the public yearns to watch in self-destruction. To face that enormous expectation, you begin a fierce process of self-mythologizing. You provide the press with exaggerated stories of a rejected childhood, turning pain into raw material for fame. You put on the vibrant outfits of Linda Gravenites, wear countless heavy beads around your neck, and always carry a bottle of Southern Comfort as an indispensable prop. You feel the feathers and fringe brushing against your skin, a flashy armor to hide a shy and lonely Janis Joplin trembling inside. You realize a bitter paradox. You are willing to sacrifice your truest emotions on stage to trade for the love of tens of thousands of strangers, because that is the only way you feel you truly exist. But the album's success is also the poison that kills the relationship with Big Brother. You feel the subtle but cruel change on the promotional posters, where your name gets larger and the band's name is shrunk at the bottom. Jealousy and resentment begin to explode into arguments right on stage. You remember Peter Albin's resentful look as he mocked into the microphone. Welcome to the Lassie Show, folks. You feel a deep wound in your heart, being mocked by your own brother in front of the audience. Just you, man, you growl back, feeling the breakdown of a family that was once your only support in San Francisco. The difference in artistic direction becomes increasingly irreconcilable. You are enamored with the rhythmic performances of Otis Redding, longing for a real soul-influenced horn section and keyboards. You look at Big Brother and only see sloppy, distorted guitars, no longer strong enough to carry your ambitions. Critics like Ralph J. Gleason push you further, advising you to discard the band to pursue a solo career. Under Albert Grossman's manipulation, you begin preparing for a painful departure. You feel like a traitor, but you also understand that if you do not leave, the artistic fire within you will be extinguished by the stagnation of the past. On the 1st of December 1968, at the legendary Madison Square Garden, your final show with Big Brother takes place in an atmosphere thick with sadness and regret. You stand on the vast stage, looking at your old teammates one last time, feeling the vibration of the strings that once went through stormy days with you. You sing with All That Remains, a tribute and also a cruel farewell. As you step off the stage, you do not feel liberation, but a free fall into absolute solitude. You chose fame and artistic perfection, but the price paid is the loss of the only protective embrace you ever had. You walk out of Madison Square Garden, the chill of the New York winter night caressing your cheeks still hot from the stage lights. The honking of cars and the noise of the city that never sleeps surround you, but you only feel an invisible silence closing in. Your hands go deep into the pockets of your expensive fur coat, touching the cold bottle of Southern Comfort, a loyal but dangerous friend. You walk toward the waiting limousine, every step on the Manhattan sidewalk carrying the weight of a life chapter that has just closed. You climb into the back seat of the car, feeling the smoothness of the leather upholstery and the scent of luxury soothing your senses. The sound of the car door closing is definitive, cutting the final connection with the old band. The car begins to roll, taking you away from the bustling center towards your new apartment, where solitude waits behind the door. You lean your head against the window, watching the streetlights glide past like streaks of light from time passing too fast, taking away youth and the most sincere friendships. You close your eyes, letting your mind drift back to the first rehearsals in San Francisco, where laughter and music blended without the need for $1,000 contracts. A hot tear rolls down your cheek, vanishing into the vibrant feather coat, a testament to the pain of growing up. You know that tomorrow, a new journey with the Cosmic Blues Band will begin. A larger stage with more professional musicians awaits you. The steady vibration of the car engine takes you into a state of deep reflection, preparing your strength to face the larger storms of fame and the cosmic blues waiting on the other side of the night. Part 9. Forming the Cosmic Blues Band, performing at Woodstock, and deepening addiction. The winter chill of New York seeps through your fur coat, but inside your chest, a new flame of ambition burns, urging you to shed the old shell of Big Brother. You stand amidst the hallways of the Columbia Studios building, feeling the shift in rhythm as fuzz guitars are replaced by the echoing, powerful sound of a brass section. You no longer want to be part of the psychedelic chaos of San Francisco. You long for a more refined music, steeped in the breath of soul and R&B. The sound that once shook your soul through the voice of Otis Redding. You take a deep breath, sensing the smell of new wood and modern electronic equipment, ready for a great gamble with your very artistic self. The Cosmic Blues Band is born as an embodiment of the dream of professionalism and tight structure you have long awaited. You look around the rehearsal room, seeing Sam Andrew, the only remaining former bandmate, standing beside first-rate session musicians like Brad Campbell and Richard Kermode. The saxophones of Snooky Flowers and Terry Clements rise, creating a thick, luxurious wall of sound enveloping your voice. You feel like a priestess commanding a powerful musical army, ready to conquer new heights. But that professionalism also carries the coldness of formula. You realize there is a chasm between your wild, improvisational instinct and the mechanical precision of the new musicians. The hunger for family connection is once again challenged, as you must learn to lead a large collective, where everyone carries their own ego and expectations. The recording process for the album I Got Dem Ol' Cosmic Blues Again Mama becomes a grueling battle between creativity and the ghosts of addiction. You sit in the dim studio, feeling the strict supervision of producer Gabriel Meckler, who constantly tries to keep you away from junkie friends and the heroin hits waiting to swallow your sobriety. Every note you utter in Try Just a Little Bit Harder or Cosmic Blues carries the weight of internal strife. You sing about pain, about trying just a little bit harder, but deep down, you feel your own fracturing. When the cover of To Love Somebody plays, your voice sobs, filled with a burning desire to be loved, an emotion that no brass section or first-rate musician can fully fill. On the 11th of September 1969, when the album was released, you faced a storm of public opinion you were never prepared for. Although the album quickly climbs to number 5 on the charts and brings you wealth, the criticism from your San Francisco home feels like knives to the heart. You read the cruel lines of Ralph J. Gleason in the San Francisco Chronicle, where he calls your new band a liability and advises you to scrap her new band and go right back to being a member of Big Brother if they'll have her. The rejection from the very community that once celebrated you causes you to collapse completely. You feel like a traitor, someone who sold her soul for commercialization. The insecurity already growing within you is now fed by the disparagement, pushing you to seek heroin as a way to silence the critical voices echoing in your head. Despite the emotional wounds, you still must step onto the most brilliant stages in the world. The European tour in the spring of 1969 brings you unceasing applause in Frankfurt, Paris, and especially the Royal Albert Hall in London. You feel the adoration of the international audience, who see in you an unprecedented cultural phenomenon. Returning to America, you appear vibrantly on The Dick Cavett Show, chatting with wit, but with eyes still holding a distant sadness. You wear your most colorful feather armor, your heaviest makeup to hide the exhaustion ravaging your body. But behind the television lights, your life is a chain of endless chaos. Tragedy and rebellion explode in Tampa, Florida, when you witness police treating your audience brutally. You cannot stay silent. You scream directly at them with the coarsest words, "Don't fuck with those people." You feel the coldness of the handcuffs snapping onto your wrists backstage, a humiliation but also a testament to your defiance. You post bail, pay the fine, and continue walking the path of an outlaw. Your psychological instability becomes increasingly severe, to the point where writer Myra Friedman is shocked to see you duet with Tina Turner at Madison Square Garden, so drunk, so stoned, so out of control. You are like a candle burning at both ends, brilliant but fading fast in a frantic mania. The Woodstock Festival in August 1969 should have been the peak of your life, but it became a memory full of regret. You sit in the helicopter with Joan Baez, looking down at the giant sea of people mired in mud and music. The initial excitement is quickly doused by a grueling 10-hour wait backstage. In a small tent thick with smoke, you and Peggy Caserta immerse yourselves in the trance of heroin and alcohol to soothe the anxiety squeezing your chest. When you step onto the stage at 2 a.m. Sunday, your legs tremble and your mind is clouded. You sing Ball and Chain and Cosmic Blues amidst the hazy space of Woodstock, but even you feel the disjointedness in your voice. Pete Townshend was right that she wasn't at her best that night, and the disappointment is so great that you adamantly refuse to include your footage in the documentary. You do not want the whole world to see a Janis Joplin breaking apart amidst the glory. Your drug addiction reaches a devastating peak with a consumption of $200 a day, a terrifying figure enough to buy out anyone's life. You remember the moment waking up after an overdose in March, seeing your face purple and the horrified look on Linda Gravenite's face. You were saved, but the chemical hunger within does not subside. You realize you are living in a paradox. Drugs help you stand firm on stage, but strip away your ability to be happy when the lights go out. You are haunted by the Saturday night swindle philosophy your father taught, the belief that disappointment is inevitable and joy is only a temporary illusion. You call it the cosmic blues, a melancholy enveloping your entire existence, making you feel like a solitary planet drifting in the infinite void. Every time you step off the stage, you face a vertiginous drop into ordinary silence. You have given all your energy, all your pain to tens of thousands of strangers, only to realize upon returning to your hotel room that no one is truly there to embrace your real self. You wear your vibrant armor, wrap yourself in feather boas and beads for the world to see a powerful rock queen, but inside is a soul screaming from absolute solitude. You give up every constant in the world except music. That's the only thing in the world you got. Those words you said to Bonnie Bramlett ring out like a life sentence you declared for yourself. Music is a savior, but it is also a shackle binding you to the destiny of sacrifice. By the end of 1969, your body is exhausted beyond endurance. Internal conflicts with the Cosmic Blues Band and artistic dissatisfaction push you to the decision to dissolve the band. This ambitious musical experiment ends in an atmosphere of gloom and disappointment. You stand amidst the abandoned instruments, feeling an unprecedented stalemate. You have fame, money, and world recognition, but you also carry a severe addiction and a broken heart. A turbulent decade is drawing to a close, and you stand there, looking toward the future of 1970 with a fearful ambiguity. You know you need a new beginning, a true salvation, before the cosmic blues completely swallow what remains of Janis Joplin. You walk out of the last studio in New York, feeling the chill of the year-end night caress your emaciated cheeks. The sound of your heels taps slowly on the quiet Manhattan sidewalk, a lonely noise in the heart of a city preparing to welcome a new decade. Your hands go deep into the pockets of your fur coat, touching the empty Southern Comfort bottle, a sense of loss seeping into your mind. You look up at the skyscrapers radiating a dim light, feeling smaller and more fragile than ever before, the weight of what is past. You walk toward the limousine waiting at the street corner, every step carrying the weariness of a soul that has wrung itself dry for art. You feel the gentle vibration of the ground beneath your feet as a subway train runs below, a familiar rhythm of unceasing movement. You do not look back at where the posters for the Cosmic Blues Band are being replaced by new advertisements for 1,970. You only want to leave, to find somewhere where the music no longer roars in your head, and the cosmic blues can temporarily subside. You climb into the back seat of the car, feeling the smoothness of the leather and the quiet space inside the cabin enveloped in darkness. The car door closes with a dull thud, cutting off the connection with the outside world, leaving you alone with your thoughts and steady breath. The car begins to roll, taking you through the glittering, light-streaked streets of New York toward the hotel. You lean your head against the window, watching the first snow of the season begin to fall lightly on the street, preparing for a final journey to Brazil to find yourself again before facing the destiny of the Pearl album waiting on the other side of time. Part 10. Recording the album Pearl and passing away from an overdose. The early morning mist of Larkspur, California, curls around the redwood trunks, carrying the pure scent of damp earth and lush green pine needles. You stand on the balcony of your new home, taking a deep breath, feeling the rare stillness of a new beginning in the spring of 1970. After the breakdowns and disappointments with the Cosmic Blues Band, you decided to shed everything to find a musical pulse that truly belonged to you. The Full Tilt Boogie Band is not just a backup group, it is your own army. Young musicians from Canada with explosive energy and the precision you long craved. You look into the rehearsal room where John Till, Brad Campbell, and Ken Pearson are tuning their strings and feel a surge of pride in your chest. It's my band! Finally, it's my band! That joyful cry echoes through the house, marking the moment you truly took control of your artistic destiny. The rehearsals in Larkspur take place in an atmosphere full of excitement and understanding. You feel how John Till's guitar blends perfectly with the vibratos in your voice, creating a heavy and powerful sound. No longer the technical errors or looseness of the past, the Full Tilt Boogie Band provides a solid anchor for you to freely soar and roar on stage. You spend the whole spring sharpening every note, feeling confidence return to your every fiber. The hunger for professional musical cohesion is finally filled by these new brothers, preparing for a great journey ahead. In June 1970, you board the Festival Express, a legendary journey across the vast fields and majestic mountains of Canada. The steady chugging of the train wheels on the tracks and the warmth of overnight parties in the train cars create a space of absolute freedom. You sit by the window, watching the vast stretches of land glide by, feeling like part of a Woodstock on wheels. Here, among friends like Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead or the members of the band, you find a closed community where music has no boundaries and commercial pressure seems to vanish. You sing, you drink, and you laugh amidst the smoke and the laughter echoing through the cars. This is perhaps the happiest and most peaceful time you have ever had, a true liberation before the final storm arrives. On the 12th of August, 1970, you stand before 40,000 spectators at Harvard Stadium in Boston, Massachusetts. Although the band's sound equipment was recently stolen and you have to use makeshift amplifiers, the energy radiating from you is still enough to shake the entire stadium. You feel the heat from the crowd, the smell of sweat, and the extreme excitement spreading through the air. This is your final public performance, an explosive show proving the remarkable growth of the Full Tilt Boogie Band. You sang with everything you had, leaving an indelible mark on the audience's hearts, a brilliant farewell that you yourself did not even know. But right in the middle of those brilliant successes, the cosmic blues still silently haunts you like a ghost that never leaves. In a conversation with Dick Cavett on television, when asked about your high school days in Port Arthur, you frankly admitted your bitterness. Laughed me out of class, out of town, and out of the state. You decided to return to Texas to attend your 1-0-year class reunion, carrying a secret desire for those who once rejected you to recognize your current success. You hoped that the rock star's aura would fade the old scars, but reality was crueler than you imagined. On the 14th of August, 1970, you walk into the reunion banquet hall in Port Arthur in the most vibrant style possible, multicolored feather boas and layered beads like a flashy armor. But instead of praise, you only receive cold stares and avoidance from conservative old classmates. The event reaches a peak of humiliation when you receive a tire award, a malicious reminder of when you were voted the ugliest man. You repeatedly ask those around you, "Will they remember me now?" But only receive indifferent silence. You leave Port Arthur with a psychological wound that can never be healed, realizing that no matter how famous you are, your homeland remains the place of the most brutal rejection. At the end of August, you move into room 105 of the Landmark Motor Hotel in Hollywood to begin the greatest project of your life, the album Pearl. You chose this place for its quiet and isolation, away from the noise of the Sunset Strip. At Sunset Sound Studios, under the guidance of legendary producer Paul A. Rothchild, you enter the peak of your career. You don't just sing, you participate in every stage of production, from adjusting rhythms to song structures. You feel the maturity in your voice, a combination of masterful technique and the rawest emotions. Pearl is not just the album title, it is your true self, a gem polished through pain and solitude. On the 5th of September, 1970, you record Chris Christopherson's Me and Bobby McGee. You sit in the studio, close your eyes, and let your voice follow the rustic acoustic melodies, telling of a journey to find freedom on long roads. You sing about Bobby McGee with an unprecedented tenderness and world weariness, turning the song into an immortal hit with your personal stamp. Then, on October 1, you stand before the microphone and perform the a cappella recording of Mercedes-Benz in just one take. You laugh loudly after finishing the satirical line about material society, a hearty laugh, but one hiding the weariness of a soul that has understood all the world's vanities. You also take a moment to record a birthday greeting to John Lennon, using the song Happy Trails as a warm tribute. Amidst the moments of musical transcendence, you do not forget your roots and those who inspired you. Upon hearing that your idol Bessie Smith still lay in an unmarked grave, you joined another fan in contributing money to buy a headstone honoring her. The greatest blues singer in the world will never stop singing. You feel a sacred connection with her through pain and music, and this act is like a commitment that the legacy of the blues will always continue. However, the care you show for the deceased is inversely proportional to the stability of your personal love life. Your relationship with Seth Morgan, a Yale student and drug dealer, brings a momentary euphoria but is full of instability. You become engaged to him amidst the concern of friends, while you still long for David Niehaus, the peaceful man in Brazil you once yearned to be with. You are torn between the desire for a family home and the reality of a life steeped in drugs and fame. In a conversation with Bonnie Bramlett, you bitterly cried out about the cruelty of fate. You give up every constant in the world except music. That's the only thing in the world you got. After efforts to detox and cleanse your body in Brazil, you tried to stay sober for a short time. But the pressure of the Pearl album and the vertiginous drop into emptiness after each stressful workday led you back to heroin. You sought drugs as an anesthetic to face the terrifying silence of the hotel room. Sadly, the previous period of sobriety had reduced your body's tolerance, turning the anesthetic into a lethal biological trap you didn't even know was there. The 3rd of October, 1970, begins like a normal and promising workday. You go to Sunset Sound Studio to listen back to the backing track of Buried Alive in the Blues. You dance in the control room, happily discussing with Paul Rothchild about recording the lead vocals tomorrow. No one sees a single sign of depression or suicidal intent. Later, you go with friends to Barney's Beanery Bar, drinking and chatting excitedly about the brilliant future of the nearly completed album. You breathe the Los Angeles air, feeling life surging in your veins, completely unaware that these are the last hours you will see the sunlight. After midnight, you drive your psychedelic Porsche back to the Landmark Hotel. You walk into the lobby, exchanging change at the front desk to buy a pack of Marlboro cigarettes from the vending machine. The clerk on duty sees that you are still very alert and lively. You hold the pack of cigarettes and the change, walking to room 105, where the invisible silence is waiting. There, you injected a dose of recently purchased heroin into your arm. Cruel fate caused you to buy a batch of heroin with extreme purity, 10 times stronger than usual. This fatal dose quickly suppressed your respiratory system, causing you to collapse to the floor, caught between the edge of the bed and the nightstand. You pass away in absolute solitude, change still clutched in your hand, ending a legendary life at age 27. On the morning of October 4, your absence from the studio worried Paul Rothchild. John Byrne Cook drove to the hotel and discovered the tragedy in room 105. The entire music world was stunned by the sudden passing of a legend. Medical examiner Thomas Noguchi concluded it was an accidental overdose, a devastating incident caused primarily by the super pure batch of heroin that claimed the lives of 8 other people that same weekend. At the front desk, they found a belated telegram from David Niehaus sent to you. "Love you, Mama, more than you know." If that telegram had arrived a few hours earlier, perhaps fate would have turned in a different direction. According to your will, you left money to throw a final farewell party for friends with the message, "Drinks are on Pearl." Your body was cremated and the ashes scattered into the Pacific Ocean, joining the infinite freedom of the ocean you always craved. In January 1971, the album Pearl was released and immediately dominated charts worldwide. Me and Bobby McGee rose to number 1, and Buried Alive in the Blues was kept as an instrumental without vocals as the most painful memorial. You have gone, joining the 27 Club, but your raw voice and fiery soul will forever be an immortal monument in the history of rock and roll. You walk out of the final studio in your mind, feeling the cool sea breeze from the Pacific Ocean caressing your cheeks. The screams and roaring music have now given way to the sound of rustling waves, a gentle melody taking you to eternal peace. Your feet walk barefoot on the fine sand, no longer the constraint of high heels or the weight of the flashy armor. You feel the warmth of the sun setting on the horizon, a golden light enveloping your entire existence. You walk toward the water's edge, where the white-capped waves are gently licking your feet, carrying the breath of freedom and serenity. The cosmic blues and the traumas from Port Arthur are now just tiny grains of sand washed away into the vast ocean. You take a deep breath, feeling the scent of sea salt and the purity of space, a feeling as light as just shedding all the burdens of the world. You smile, the most radiant and genuine smile, as you see yourself dissolving into the vast water, becoming a part of the waves that never stop singing. The steady sound of the waves lulls you into a deep sleep, without hallucinations, without panic, in the heart of the forgiving sea. You feel yourself drifting gently, away from the stage lights and the applause, to find where your soul truly belongs. An absolute silence envelops the space, leaving only the rhythm of the eternal ocean singing the song of farewell for a legend. You have finished your journey, leaving a brilliant gem named Janis Joplin for the world. And now, you are entitled to rest in the gentle arms of the sea. Conclusion. Janis Joplin. When the gem rests beneath the ocean. No need to rush, nor any need to try to hold on to anything anymore. The lights of the distant refineries, or the bright neon lights of Los Angeles, are now just blurred outlines, gradually fading into the deep blue of the eternal ocean. The Janis Joplin you have accompanied throughout 10 chapters of life, from a rejected child in Port Arthur to the brilliant queen at Monterey, has now found her true freedom. She has receded like a thin puff of southern comfort smoke, but what remains in you now is a warm feeling in your chest, a deep empathy for a soul who lived and sang with her entire life. The artist whose final moments you just witnessed in room 105 no longer bears the weight of the feather armor or the judgment of the world. All pain, all rejection, and the cosmic blues have now been embraced and soothed by the ocean. Do you hear the sound of the waves rustling from the Pacific? It is as gentle and steady as the breath of the most peaceful sleep, carrying the ashes and the final echoes of a fiery voice. Perhaps the greatest lesson Janis Joplin left us is the idea that no matter how cruel life is, if we live true to our nature and listen to our hearts, we can still create a precious gem for this life. The bell from some distant temple seems to have just rung, light as a leaf falling onto the still water. The dim light by your window is now only a fragile boundary between the pages of history just closed and the dreams about to begin. Take a deep breath once more. Feel the relief spread from the top of your head to your heels, and let the notes of the Pearl album quietly lead you toward deep sleep. No more pressure, no more loneliness, only absolute peace enveloping the space. Janis Joplin has rested, and now it is your turn to close your eyes, relax every thought, and let tonight's journey vanish into the wonderful realm of dreams.